For the next 5 years, this is our home. No money, no loans, and no friends. All we got is this old Lada and a tiny abandoned farm. Will we prosper or end up broke? This is Farming Simulator Swamp Challenge. I started my journey to the farm. At first, I was driving on a concrete road, which soon turned into dirt, and not long after to a swampy mud. And I quickly ran into a problem. Can I actually drive through this? Where does the road even go? I slowly began my drive through the massive puddle. At one point, the water level got above the tires, but I made it. The old Neva's 4x4 system still works flawlessly. After a short drive, I arrived at the gate of the farm. I opened them up and went inside. The farm looks way worse than the photos. This once was a nice pond, I suppose. We even got some old equipment left over. I parked the car and began my inspection. There was a whole lot of trash all around. A decent shape shed, some more trash, a well-maintained potato cellar. That is our house, I suppose. Nothing fancy, but will do the job. We got a gardening plot, even though it's all overgrown, an apple tree, and a pond full of frogs. We also got this half-destroyed combine that we may sell for parts and get some starting money. But first, let's check what's inside the shed. Maybe they left something. I slowly opened the door, and what was left surprised me. We had a smaller shed inside with some small shovels if we ever need to plant some trees, a workbench in case any of our machinery breaks, and some simple tools like a shovel, a scythe, and even a working chainsaw. But nevertheless, that was all we got. I went back to my car and flew my drone to inspect the property from above. We had a couple of fields, one of grass and a bigger one with some kind of crops, but they were completely overgrown with all kinds of stuff. Huge bushes were growing in the middle of the fields. I didn't have much time to just hang around. I decided to start off fixing the grass situation on the field. But before I could cut it, I had to remove all the bushes. I took my chainsaw and began cutting them one by one. In no time, all the big bushes were removed. The chainsaw worked like new. Then came the time for the hard part, cutting all the grass. The scythe wasn't the sharpest, though. It sometimes struggled to cut the big grass. By the time I was done, it was already 7 p.m. I went to get some rest. I woke up and immediately started selling off all the crap around the farm. Most of it was worth only a couple dollars. But to be fair, I was happy just to get rid of it. The most expensive was the combine, which sold for $39, as most of the expensive parts such as the engine and electronics were already torn out. After selling everything, I had negative $179 as I also had to pay property taxes. So I hopped into my Neva and went to meet my local dealer to see how much the cheapest forage harvester cost. After a short drive, I arrived. It didn't look like much, but it had everything I needed. The cheapest hand-pushable forage wagon is priced at $200. We are $400 short. So I went back to my farm. After a quick consideration, I decided to chop off some of the trees that were growing in the middle of the farm. I cut it down, chopped it into small pieces, loaded it onto the Neva, and took it to the store. The tree had a lot of branches, so I only got $583 for it. But it was enough to buy the pushable forage wagon. I loaded it into the Lada and went home. But before I collect the grass, I need to clean around the grass dryer. As the dried grass is about 3 times more expensive than the damp one, I first cut all the grass around and put some fresh dirt on top. It went from looking like a pile of logs to a proper grass dryer. Then turned on the forage wagon and began working. The grass yield was not too good, but the grass dryer filled fast. In just a couple of hours, it was full, and it brought a dilemma. We still got a whole lot of grass left on the field, but nowhere to put it. I'd like to sell it, but the cheapest trailer costs $1,000. So I collected it all and dumped at the end of the field. I need to make money somehow. I got negative $3 in my bank account. I decided to expand my workable land, remove all of these trees and turn it into a nice field. I began cutting the trees down, one by one. After a short while, I had a massive area cleared and a swamp full of logs. Now only need to sell them all off. I ran back to the yard, hopped into my lovely Neva, chopped the trees into small pieces, loaded a bunch of logs in the trunk and on top, and started my painful journey to the sell point. I got $1,273 for one full load of logs. We are definitely going in the right direction. I kept going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. By the time I delivered my 10th load, it was already dark, and rain has set in. In total, we made just over $12,000. I made my way back to the farm and went to get some rest. First thing in the morning, I went to check how much progress we made with the logs. I lifted the drone. We are about 1/4 of the way there. I need to rethink my strategy. It will take me a year to sell it all off. I hopped into my Neva and went to the store to find any way we can speed this process. I kept scrolling through the catalog without any success, until I spotted something. A beautiful trailer with a crane for exactly $11,000, which was specifically made for cars. I bought it, attached it to the car, and went home to test out. It took some time to get used to it, but it sped up the process significantly. It sped it so much that by the time noon came, I was already delivering my last load. Nah, I'm just kidding. It was shit, barely any logs fit, and working the crane was a nightmare. After filling just one trailer, I sold it off and rented this massive lizard truck for just $3,300 for a day. It was designed specifically for such terrain. Loading it did take a while though, as I was only able to lift very short pieces. Half an hour to fill the whole trailer up. Got $8,500 for a single load.
Got a banjo riff with a funky twang, gator on the road doing fang, fang, fang. CB radio going breaker 19, scope waved at me, smelled real fine. Mud on the windshield, can't see squat, but the swamp funk groove is hitting the spot. If your truck starts dancing, don't panic, just let it.
Selling all the logs brought us $52,000. Gave back the truck, got a $1,000 fine for a punctured tire, and went back to the farm. I was finally able to tidy up the farm a little bit. I started off by putting some dirt over the annoying massive puddle in the middle of the yard, then put some fresh dirt around the garden plot, apple tree, and just all around. The garden plot finally looked like an usable thing. But to grow anything, we need some seeds, some fertilizer, and some water. The first two are easy, as we can just get it from the store. But water, you see, even though we are surrounded by water, it's all dirty and full of bacteria. If we use it, the crops die instantly. So I spent $15,000 on this magnificent piece of engineering. A water pump and filtration station. It should solve the water problem for us. I drove back to the store, bought 4 pallets of seeds, 4 of solid fertilizer, a water tank, a bare-bone cultivator, a basic small trailer, and a small little tractor. I loaded in the seeds and fertilizer, but Neva was struggling to pull it. So I had to use the tractor, filled the gardens with seeds and fertilizer. Then with some water, the crops quickly turned green, but I left it be while I went out to try and level the new lands. Leveling mud wasn't too expensive, but I still ended up spending just over $4,000 for the whole job. And so, it was time to start doing some real farming, cultivating the field. I attached the cultivator and went out to try and cultivate all the dead crops. It was going perfectly. As the crops stayed dead for a few years at this point, a simple push makes them fall over as they are rotten inside. It took me a solid couple of hours to finish cultivating both the fields, but after a day full of loading the logs, moving the pallets, and driving the tractor, I was drenched. I went straight into my caravan to get some rest. After waking up, I was pleasantly surprised. The tree produced 2 full boxes of apples, and the garden got us a full box of strawberries. The soil must be insanely fertile around here. I loaded all the boxes onto my Neva and went off to the store. Got $4,800 for it, for just 3 boxes. While at the store, I also bought myself a nice trailer for just $400. Wasn't much, but it'll do the job. What job, you may ask? Remember the grass dryer? We got 10,000 liters of silage in it ready to be sold. So I carefully parked my trailer and started loading it all in. Was able to fit 3,000 liters of silage into it. When sold, it brought us $1,100 per load. I was able to sell it all in just 4 trips and got myself an extra $4,000. I went back to the farm, parked the car, In just 4 months, the farm changed dramatically. We got 2 fields that are ready to be planted with wheat next month, and a huge yard with loads of machinery. But I wanted to go bigger, expand more. So I took my chainsaw and went to the wild swamp again, cutting down anything I could. Large trees, small trees, didn't matter. I wanted to expand my farm and conquer the whole swamp. After a whole day of work, I cleared this massive piece of land. But now, time to sleep. I woke up early. At 7 a.m., I was out of the house already, inspecting my garden. That produced a whole load of vegetables and fruits, including 2 full boxes of apples. I loaded them all up on the trailer, put the straps on, and began my journey to the store. I've spent almost half a year on these lands already. This place is starting to feel like home. I just need to start planting some crops. We'll need some if we ever get to keep some animals. I sold all the vegetables and fruits, got just over $10,000 for them. I brought the trailer back to the farm, parked it up, and went back to the store to try and buy some kind of cedar. But unfortunately, my tractor with its 45 horsepower was too weak to pull any of them. The most basic one requires 60 horsepower. So I had to say farewell to the tractor and spent $20,000 on this lovely new John Deere with 63 horsepower and $7,000 on a cedar to match it. Used all the money I got left on some seeds and fertilizer. Attached the cedar, opened the loading hatches, loaded the seeds, loaded the fertilizer. I was left with $43 in my bank account. So I went home, unfolded the cedar, and started seeding, but immediately ran into a problem. The tractor is struggling to pull the cedar. It's probably because of the wet soil. I am barely going at 5 kilometers per hour. After trying for a bit, I decided to call it quits. Parked the cedar, attached a trailer, put some log stops on the sides, loaded it full of logs, went to the store, sold it for $2,300, which after hard negotiations with the shopkeeper was barely enough to rent out this John Deere with 116 horsepower. It cost us $2,295 for a couple-hour rental. I was once again left with pennies in my bank account, $77 to be precise. I rushed back to the farm. Every additional hour cost us hundreds of dollars. Attached the cedar. The tractor had 0 problems towing the cedar, going at 18 kilometers per hour, and it even has a GPS, which made life so much easier. In just a couple of hours, I was done, so I quickly made my way to the shop, gave back the tractor, and went back home. After 6 months in the swamps, I had only $74 in the bank account. It felt like I worked so hard and didn't achieve any progress. But on the other hand, I have 2 fields with wheat growing on them, and huge piles of logs just laying around. So without further ado, I started loading the logs again. Was too broke to rent the truck again. So had to do with the small trailer we got. For the next 2 months, I just loaded wood and sold it, loaded wood, sold it, loaded wood. By the time November came, I've sold over 30 loads and made some nice cash. $72,859 to be precise. Even though it's a large amount of money, I've got a load of stuff I need to buy. When I got back, something spooky happened. I worked in the fields for so long that even my trailer started sinking in. The tractor struggled to pull it out, so I ended up just selling it, as it was not used anyways. Wait, but how will I sell all the vegetables and apples now? I'm so stupid. But nevertheless, I bought a little more lightweight trailer that even the Neva will be able to pull for just $2,500. And then had a huge dilemma on my hands. Even though selling wood proved to be a very lucrative business, I would probably make a whole lot more money if I made some kind of product. Planks, beams, etc. I still had a massive amount of logs laying in the swamp. I opened the catalog, and most of the wood shops were insanely expensive. $50,000, $840,000. But I found this little one, a simple sawmill, for just $10,000. That will be able to produce not only planks, but also long planks, prefab walls and beams. I've built it in the middle of the new swamplands we cleared. I paid $11,500 for just the building and the foundation, then built a nice little road and covered it with asphalt for an extra $6,000. But after visiting the factory and speaking with the workers, I was told that the longer the logs, the better. The 2-meter-long logs we can lift by hand are basically no good. I went back to the shop to find a solution for lifting bigger logs. I was told that we got 3 options: using a forwarder and just pulling the logs to the factory, using a wheel loader, and the third, using a tractor-attached winch, but it has a huge limit on how much it can pull, coming at 6.6 tons max. It didn't take much time to decide, as the only thing in my budget is the tractor winch. I spent $8,500 on the cheapest one, attached it, and drove back to try and test it, if it even works. I moved the tractor into position, lowered the winch for extra friction, took the cable, and attached it onto the log. Tried pulling it. But rather than the log moving, the tractor started moving backwards. I even tried to pull the winch and drive forward, but that proved to be too difficult too. So I loosened the rope a little bit and put a massive rock behind the tractor. And slowly but surely the tree started moving closer. I kept pulling the trees, one by one, and in just a couple of hours I had this huge pile, which was enough to fill the factory to the brink. I made my way back to the yard, slowly backed into my shed, detached the winch, and after a long time I finally had some free time. The crops were growing. The factory was working. But that got me thinking. I still got $46,000. I need to invest it wisely somewhere. I've scrolled through the catalog and found this tiny but powerful juice production factory that takes in apples and makes juice out of it. So I sold the grass dryer, as I don't have any grass fields now, and built a juice factory in its place. Not only will I be able to produce apple juice, but also grape juice, if we ever need that in the future. Inside it had a simple press, nothing too fancy, but it will do the job for now. I transported all the apples to it and activated all the machinery. Now the only thing we need is time. I went to get some rest. The juice factory produced a whole lot of juice, got a ton of vegetables and fruit as well. We'll just need to fill up on seeds and fertilizer again. Got 4 boxes of apples as well. Got quite a bit of weeds in the wheat fields. Oh wow, the lumberyard produced a whole lot of products, but selling them off brings some new challenges. I won't be able to lift these heavy beams with just bare hands. I ran back to the yard, hopped into my Neva, attached a trailer, and loaded all the apple juice and apples onto it. Put some straps on. Took it to the store.
Man, the swamp is looking quite nice in the spring. The water level is going down a bit as well. It's quite a pleasant place to live.
We got $58,000 for all of it. While at the shop, I also checked the catalog to see if we can afford any machinery that can lift those heavy wooden beams from our factory. But unfortunately, all the wheel loaders were out of our price range. The cheapest one goes for almost $200,000. And skid steers I think will be too small to lift those pref walls. But forklifts, they should work perfectly. We got 2 options, an electric one for $55,000 and a diesel one for $79,000. I decided to go with the diesel one, as electricity and swamps don't go too well together. I also put double front wheels for some extra friction. In total, it cost us $80,500. I went back home with the Lada. Then I had to run back to the shop on foot to bring back the forklift. It was lifting pallets filled with vegetables like it was nothing. At first, it was a struggle to load all the pallets to this tiny trailer, but after I got used to it, I was lifting 6 pallets at a time. I managed to fit 11 pallets into this tiny trailer. I put some straps on and went to try and sell it. Took it slow and steady though, driving at only 11 kilometers per hour, as it wasn't very stable. But I made it. Got $17,434. I don't want to repeat this journey a second time though. The risk of tipping over is too high. I went inside the shop to try and negotiate a deal for some rental. I've got an offer to rent the lizard truck again for just $3,213, but I also needed a trailer, so that cost an additional $1,096. In total, for just over $4,000, we got a truck and a trailer. I entered the truck, attached the trailer, and made my way back to the farm, carefully parked the truck, and started loading. Managed to fit everything into just one load, put some straps on, got $41,987 for all of them. Then, it was time to load all the wood. I started off by loading the biggest stuff. Just 4 pallets of prefab walls took up the whole trailer, so I had to make a second trip. Prefab walls sold for $57,211, and the rest of the products brought us another $136,299. I gave back the truck and the trailer, and began investing the money. First, I sold my Lada and bought a nice new Toyota Land Cruiser with 315 horsepower. I also put some nice mud wheels. That cost $3,420 extra. All in all, it cost us $45,470. I also needed a new tractor. The old one is just too weak to do any of the major jobs. They had a discount going on for the John Deere 5M series, which was priced at $77,500. But after all the extras came out to $100,150, I also bought the cheapest new sprayer for $30,500, a 900 kilograms weight for $1,550, a pallet of herbicide for $2,400, 4 pallets of seeds for $5,040, and 4 pallets of fertilizer for $7,680. After everything, I was left with $65,244.
Man, this thing is beautiful. The Land Rover looks nice too, but this is the real beauty. Everything is so new and fresh.
I turned it on for the first time. Attached the weight, attached the sprayer, loaded it full of herbicide, and went back home. But while at the store, I forgot to ask the clerk to put the slim tires on for spraying. I tried backing up into my workshop with the sprayer attached, but it was too tall. I had to detach it. Carefully backed up the Johnny into the shed. Slim tires cost us an additional $1,000, but we can change them in the future for free. I once again reattached my sprayer and went out to try spraying. The tractor was equipped with GPS, which made spraying a breeze. I could go to sleep while it's driving itself. It took about 5 minutes to spray both fields. I parked the tractor and ran back to the store to get my Land Cruiser. To my surprise, the workers loaded up all the pallets for me. I just put some straps on and was on my way. Carefully loaded all the seeds and fertilizer to the garden. Unloaded the herbicide, put it out of the sunlight, parked the forklift, parked the truck, and got to thinking. I still got all of those logs laying in the cleared swamp. I should do something with them. I got into my Johnny, attached a winch, and went to the swamp to see if he will be able to pull the logs. I took the cable, attached it onto the tree. The weight was a breeze for the almighty John Deere. But we can make it even better. I made my way back to the yard, backed into my workshop, and put double wheels in the back. I was able to pull 2 full trees at the same time. In no time at all, the swamp was clear of logs. Then came the expensive part, leveling the whole land. Even though leveling mud is not that expensive, it still cost us over $60,000. We got just $1,605 left, and because of that, we will have to use the old rusty cultivator to work the land. Even though the Johnny can pull a whole lot bigger, it feels like a huge waste of fuel, to be fair. By the time I finished cultivating, it was completely dark. But I really wanted to plant corn. Planting them in May gives a huge risk of them rotting in the autumn. So I made my way back to the yard, detached the cultivator, attached the seeder, loaded it up with seed and fertilizer, and went out to plant some corn.
Wait a second. I got a seeder, and I need a freaking planter to plant corn.
I made my way back to the farm and went to sleep. I started off the new day by transporting the apples to the juice factory, unloaded the seeds and fertilizer from the Land Cruiser, and went to the shop to check how much a planter cost. A good size, 11 rows, 5 meters wide, requiring 110 horsepower, is priced at $30,000. Maybe I can afford it if I sell all the production. I made my way back, loaded up the vegetables, sold it for $15,000, loaded up all the wood, sold it for $28,000, taking my total balance to $44,942. I bought the planter for $31,800, then spent $945 on seeds and $1,440 on fertilizer, loaded up the seeds and the fertilizer, and made my way back to the farm. But before we start planting, we should split the land into smaller pieces. First, I expanded the road, then expanded the lumberyard a little bit, and started making some outlines. I've made some nice square fields and started planting some corn. I've planted 2 fields of corn, one massive one of soybeans, and I planted this weird-shaped one with grass. But after all that work, I had nothing to do. I wandered from one side of the farm to the other, cleaned up some seeds that were laying around, parked the equipment nicely, but eventually got bored and decided to go explore the swamps. Hopped into the Land Rover and just went. I didn't find anything at first, but then
What just happened? A lake? In the swamps? Where did this thing come from? There goes our land cruiser, I guess. Let's just swim to this rock. It's so massive. Seriously, how will I get the car out?
I swam back to the shore. The whole lake was covered in these thick bushes. I made my way through them and ran home. Picked up my chainsaw and a chair, ran back, cleared a small path to the lake, bought some fishing rods, put my chair down, and started fishing. Spent 2 days out here and caught absolutely nothing. I packed it all up and ran back home. All the wheat is ready for harvest. But first, I transported all the apples to the juicery, got into my John Deere, carefully backed into the workshop, removed the double tires, attached this totally not too small trailer, but that's all we got for now. Loaded it full of vegetables and went to sell it. Got $18,554 for the first load, $19,374 for the second, $17,491 for the third, and $60,000 for the fourth. Went to the shop to find some kind of combine. Got this beautiful Massey Ferguson for just $56,240. I also spent $9,800 on a 5.8-meter header and $16,500 on a trailer. Got into the combine, attached the header, and started driving back. The dealer also offered to help drive my tractor to the farm for me. I unfolded the combine and started the harvest. The yields were phenomenal, coming at about 5,000 liters per hectare, which is insane.
I got 6,189 liters from just this side alone. We'll probably net another 15,000 liters from the other one. We got a full trailer and a full bunker. Need to build a storage system.
I opened a catalog, but all the modern systems were insanely expensive. $80,000, $117,000, $125,000, $147,000. But I kept looking until I found this simple silo that stores 30,000 liters of grain with a simple design, a small loading hatch, an engine, a silo itself, and a small unloading conveyor with a small engine. With the foundation, it cost us $12,002 and a few hundred to pour some asphalt around. I slowly backed up the trailer to the loading bay, opened the unloading hatch, and poured it all in. Then unloaded the combine and finished the harvest. Unloaded the last grain into the trailer, parked the combine, loaded the wheat into the silos. In total, we got 19,871 liters of wheat, about 66% of the silo's capacity. Got back into the Johnny, parked the trailer, but soon after I ran into a problem.
The yard is getting too crowded with all the machinery. I can barely drive around. We got stuff parked around in every corner. Thinking maybe I should build some new sheds.
I decided to build a new shed, but first we need to cut down all of these trees. I moved the cedars out of the way, took my chainsaw, and began cutting. Removed all the branches, chopped into smaller pieces, loaded them up onto the trailer, and sold them off. I would have taken it to the factory, but with all those branches, they're no good for making planks. All that was left was this massive oak. Couldn't make myself cut it. It's just too beautiful. Started shopping for a shed. Some of them were too small, some too large, some insanely expensive, until I found this for $18,000. Fits perfectly. I had to spend about $1,000 to level out the land. Not only did it fit the cedars and the spreader, but also the combine, the trailer, and even the forklift. The yard once again looked nice and clean. But enough gibberish, time to get back to work. I hopped into the Johnny and went to the shop. Bought the cheapest round baler, which came out to be $12,550, attached it, and went home. Made exactly 13 bales, but it needs to dry a little bit before it can be sold. In the meantime, I parked the baler, drove the John Deere into the workshop, and swapped the tires for the slim ones. Attached the sprayer, loaded it full of herbicide. Shouldn't take long to spray all the fields with this massive sprayer. I unfolded it and began spraying. It took about 20 minutes to do all 3 fields, and I was left with just 228 liters of herbicide. We'll need to buy some more soon. I parked the tractor and got to thinking. You see, I've got a lot of free time. It's 2 months before I need to plant some new crops or harvest the corn. The garden is growing. The factory is churning out production. I decided to expand my farm a little bit, but go in the opposite direction from the last time. Clear as much of this land as possible before September comes. I ran into the workshop, picked up the chainsaw, and began cutting. Managed to clear this whole lot, all the way from the farm to the shop. Hundreds of trees on the ground. But now, before we start working on all the wood, we have some more urgent things to take care of. I ran back to the yard, transported all the apples to the juicery, inspected the garden. We'll need some seeds and fertilizer soon, but that can wait. I made my way to the fields. The soybeans were growing just fine. The corn were already taller than me. Just a couple more days before we can harvest. But they seem to need some fertilizer. Not ideal to fertilize them at this stage, but we'll have to work. But first we need to buy some liquid fertilizer, and for that we need some extra money. I hopped into the tractor, attached the big trailer, carefully backed into the workshop, removed the sides, and started loading all the vegetables and juice. It's so weird driving to the shop without all the trees around us. All the vegetables sold for $39,563, loaded in the prefab walls next, which sold for $30,000, and wood got us another $54,691. We should buy some more supplies, so we wouldn't need to come back so often. Bought 4 tanks of liquid fertilizer, 4 of herbicide, 4 of seeds, 4 of solid fertilizer, and 8 pallets of lime. In total, we spent almost $40,000 on supplies. Unloaded it all in the middle of the yard for now. Need to build a shed for it all, but have no time now. Quickly attached the sprayer, loaded it full of liquid fertilizer, and went out to the fields, unfolded the sprayer, and began spraying. For soybeans it worked all right, but corn. I raised the sprayer to the max, and even then I was hitting the tops a little bit.
Without GPS, this would be impossible. I can't see shit. Hopefully I'm not just destroying the crops. We'll see soon, I suppose.
I parked the tractor, got into the workshop, put double wheels on the Johnny, attached the seeder, loaded it with seed and fertilizer, carefully maneuvered around all the pallets, and went out to plant some wheat. But I forgot something. The fields are still full of bales, and I have no way of loading them. I quickly opened the catalog and worked out a deal for this skid steer, $35,000 with delivery included, plus $600 for the bale spear. I went for a quick toilet break, and when I came out it was already in my yard. I turned it on and immediately started working. Just put the bales on the road for now, we'll move them later. The whole road got covered by bales, but we are finally able to plant.
Last few bits. Can finally start sorting out this pallet situation. I need to decide on where to build the new shed. The yard is full though. Not sure. Here maybe? But then I need to rework this fence too. But I got nowhere else to put it.
I leveled the field, spent $35,257 on this massive shed, another few grand on some shelves, and a few $100s on some concrete around.
Wow, this thing is massive. We even got some lights. This should be enough storage for all the pallets.
I ran to the lumber yard, hopped into the forklift, and began transporting everything to the shed. It took a good couple of hours, but everything looks nice and clean now. Moved the bales into the big shed for now too. Can finally drive around, but I have one more thing to take care of. The lumber yard will take too long to treat all of these new logs we got. So I spent $10,500 on a second production line, and after everything was said and done, I went to get some rest. The juicery produced some juice, but there seems to be something wrong with the garden. It produced absolutely nothing. Even though it has plenty of seeds and fertilizer, maybe it's just too cold. The apple tree has 0 apples as well. I ran to the fields next. The wheat had a massive weeds problem. They were double the size of the actual crops. Both the soybeans and corn were ready to harvest. The lumberyard produced a whole lot of products as well, but enough chit-chatting. Time to get to work. I ran back to the yard, hopped into the tractor, carefully backed into the workshop, changed the wheels to slim ones, attached the fertilizer, filled it with herbicide, and went out to spray the wheat. Spraying only took a few minutes, but we have a whole lot more jobs we need to take care of. We just need some money first. I parked the sprayer, attached the big trailer, loaded up all the juice, then filled it with wooden beams and long planks, put some straps on, and went to sell.
Shit, I forgot to mention that I also towed all the wood into nice piles. I should have probably explained it at the start. Now everyone will write comments that I cheated.
The first load netted us $108,275. The second one for $122,923, and the last one got us another $117,275. All in all, we got $350,000. Got into the shop, bought a corn header for $11,500, and a header trailer for $2,800. The workers even loaded it onto the trailer for me. While at the shop, I also added some bigger sides to the grain trailer, which cost us $1,500. Attached the header, and went back home, hopped into the harvester, attached the corn header, and started the harvest.
I got 5.5 thousand liters from just this small field alone. The yields are decent, to be fair, but we'll need to expand the silos again, that's for sure. We'll probably get about 15,000 liters from this field, and about similar of soybeans. There's no way I can fit it all in that tiny silos.
Finished the harvest, but now we have a problem. Need some new silos. I opened the catalog and built 3 silos expansions for $9,000 each storing an additional 30,000 liters of grain. Unloaded the trailer, loaded the last few grains from the harvester, unloaded it into the silos, detached the corn header, attached the standard one, and began harvesting soybeans. In total, harvested 20,328 liters of corn and 10,370 liters of soybeans, parked the trailer, and ran to the store with a single goal: find a way to get the truck out of the lake. I first bought a truck for $68,100, a flatbed trailer for $21,500, and then came time for the hard decision. I had to choose which crane to rent. The big one would definitely be long enough, but it's 2 times as expensive as the smaller one. I decided to risk it and rented the smaller one for $15,045, entered the crane, and started driving. But the trees quickly got in my way. I ran back to the farm, picked up the chainsaw, and made a path through the swamp for the crane and the truck. Firstly, I parked the truck in place, brought in the crane, parked it beside the truck, unfolded the crane, and began extending it.
Shit, that's the max it can go. We only need like an extra 20 meters or so. Shit. Should have rented the big one from the very beginning.
I folded the crane and took it back to the store. After getting laughed at by the dealer, I rented the big crane for $25,245 and began my drive to the lake. But the second I drove it into some water, it got stuck. I managed to get it out, but I will have to reinforce the road somehow. I bought some dirt, put some wood boards on top, and poured concrete in the loading area. It was driving flawlessly now. I parked it up, unfolded it, and started extending it. Swam to check it.
Okay, a bit too far. At least we know that it's long enough this time. Let's just move it a bit closer. We'll just double check to make sure it's good. Okay, looks good now.
Attached the hook and started lifting slowly. The crane was shaking, but slowly it got out of the water. Carefully moved it closer to the crane for better weight distribution. Moved it onto the trailer, folded the crane, put some straps on the truck, and began driving to the yard. Parked the truck right next to the workshop, carefully unloaded the truck, and pushed it into the workshop. Got back into the crane, carefully maneuvered it out of the farm, got to the shop, and gave it back.
Let's talk about money. The repair of the truck cost us $9,000. The 2 cranes cost $15,045 and $25,245 respectively. What else? Oh, we also spent $4,000 on dirt, about $5,000 on wood, and another $900 on concrete. I'm not counting the truck and the trailer as we would have bought it anyways. All in all, The rescue of this truck cost us $59,190. We could have bought 2 of them for that price.
I drove back to the lake. We should put the lake to our use somehow. I opened a catalog and found this fishing station. Spent $76,000 to build it. It takes corn, wheat, and mineral feed, and grows fish for us. I got back into the truck, drove back to the farm, hopped into the tractor, attached the trailer, loaded it full of wheat.
Unloaded it at the fish grovery. Fish grovery? Is that even a word? A fish factory? Nah, that sounds weird too. What do you call a place that grows fish? Write down in the comments, or write a comment on how dumb I am to not know.
I loaded the trailer with corn next, hopped into the Land Cruiser, attached the trailer, and went to the shop to buy some mineral feed. Bought 16 pallets of mineral feed for $16,000. They loaded it straight into my truck. I just put some straps on and went off.
The Land Cruiser will work back every penny of that $60,000 we paid for its rescue now.
Carefully unloaded it. After the fish grow up, this one fish growing production plant should produce about 10,000 liters of fish per month. I got into the truck and went back, parked the trailer, parked the truck, but now comes the hard part. We need to transport all this wood to the factory. I picked the chainsaw and got into the big truck, parked the trailer, and went off to the shop, bought a wood trailer for $29,200, rented a telehandler for $7,089 per day, plus $1,680 for the log fork, attached the trailer, and went off to the wild swamps, parked the truck next to the pile of logs. Before we can transport, we need to cut the logs into smaller pieces, and so went my time, cutting the logs, loading the wood, transporting the wood, cutting the wood, loading the wood, transporting the wood. I cleared all of the wood. At first I loaded it at the lumberyard, but it quickly filled up. So I just loaded the rest into these 2 massive piles. I got back into the truck, drove back to the farm, parked the truck inside the shed. It's March already. Time to plant some potatoes and oats. But first I want to check something. I hopped into the Land Cruiser and drove off to the lake to check up on the fish factory. We got some fish just left on the table, and over 13,000 liters still inside. I carefully parked the truck right next to the loading table and started loading. Managed to fit all of it, 35 boxes in total. Sold it off for $36,592. But unfortunately, it's not enough to buy the potato planter. It costs almost $200,000. To make back the money, I'd need to plant hundreds of hectares of potatoes. I hopped into the John Deere, attached the planter, filled it with seeds and fertilizer, and began planting sunflowers. By the time I was finished planting, it was completely dark. I parked the cedar and went to sleep. The new day brought us a massive mist, but at least the garden and the apples are growing again. I moved the apples to the juice factory, got into the big truck, attached the flat deck trailer, and went off to the lumber yard, loaded the trailer full of wood. The first load sold for $236,395. The second for $121,158. The third for $152,771. The fourth for $147,062. And the last one for $92,307. All in all, we got $802,692. I drove back, parked the truck, and began leveling the new swamps, built a new road to the shop, sold the camper, destroyed the fence, spent $35,000 on a brand new frame house, planted some grass, planted some trees, built some new fences, built a garage and a shed, built a fence around the lumber yard, and made outlines for the new fields. I spent over $200,000 on all of this.
Wow, the house is so beautiful. We even got a bed. Won't need to sleep on a wet mattress anymore. A cozy little kitchen with a nice view. And we still got $588,000 in the bank.
I've planted 32 new apple trees and spent $50,000 on this massive garden. Then planted 16 more apple trees. Ran to check the new garden. It takes in 400,000 liters of seeds and fertilizer and over 1 million liters of water, but it should produce a ton of vegetables and fruits. But I will need to invest a hefty amount into it. I hopped into the big truck and went off to the shop. Bought 64 pallets of solid fertilizer, and 64 pallets of seeds. Spent over $200,000 on supplies. I also spent $50,000 on an automatic watering system. Parked the trailer, parked the truck, got into the Land Cruiser, and went off to the store. Sold off both tractors, the old trailer, the water tank, and bought this beautiful Valtra T-Series with 271 horsepower for $241,100, spent another $3,730 on a 2.2-ton weight, and $8,000 on a subsoiler. Got into the Valtra, attached the weight, attached the plow, and began working the soil. By the time I was finished, it was 3 a.m., so I drove back, parked the tractor, and went to sleep. First thing in the morning, I went out to check the new garden and apple trees. The garden produced a whole lot of production, including over 24,000 liters of carrots or potatoes. That's just insane. The trees produced 7 boxes of apples as well. I ran back, hopped into the Land Cruiser, and started off by loading the apples and took it to the juice factory, but it quickly got full. So I loaded it all up onto the big truck trailer, sold it off for $62,734. But selling off all the production from the new garden with this small trailer will be a problem. I spent $35,000 on a bigger trailer. It's about twice as long. I first parked the old trailer in the shed, attached the new one, sold the first load for about $100,000, the second for another $100,000, and wood got us an additional $191,000. But more money equals more problems. We need to fill up the lumberyard with wood again. I spent $296,000 on a wheel loader and $6,500 on a grapple, and was, once again, almost out of money. I attached the grapple and made my way to the lumberyard, loaded up the lumberyard with wood. In 3 years on the farm, we went from a small deceased farm to this, a well-diversified farm that produces apples, all kinds of vegetables, wood production. We even got a fishing spot, working with top-notch modern equipment. But we are missing one thing. Livestock. I opened the catalog, spent $60,000 on a sheep shed, and another $20,000 on a pasture fence, ran to the new sheep pasture, bought 150 newborn sheep for $34,500, was left with barely $25,957. But we need to make some food for the sheep. Got back to the farm, hopped into the Valtra, drove to the shop. After hard negotiations, managed to work out a deal, rented a front mower for $688, back mower for $1,785, and a windrower for $4,539. All in all, we spent $7,012 on all the rentals. Got into the Valtra, attached the front mower, attached the back mower, and drove to the only grass field we got, unfolded the mowers, and started mowing. Then windrowed it, and made 24 bales, made my way back to the yard, parked the baler, parked the tractor, and ran to get the skid steer, loaded the bales onto the trailer, unloaded it at the sheep barn.
All of those bales won't last long. I should plant some more grass fields. If I fill up the whole barn with sheep, I'll need at least 100 bales per year, minimum.
We still got a lot of planting to do. I got into the Valtra, attached the seeder, and went out planting. Planted 2 fields of grass and 3 of corn, parked the seeder, parked the tractor, and went to have some rest. But the morning surprised me.
What is this? A hailstorm? It's middle of June. I'll just wait here for now.
The hailstorm quickly passed. I got into the Land Cruiser, and as a first thing, I went off to inspect the fish factory, parked next to the loading bay. Oh, it still has plenty of all the materials. While I checked the materials, the fisherman even loaded the fish for me. I closed the sides and went off to sell it.
I need to spray the sunflower with herbicide while it's still not too tall. Wow, even the corn have grown out of the ground already. It has been barely a day since we planted. Grass as well.
I sold the fish for $29,992, went off back to the farm, parked the Land Cruiser, and got to thinking. The gardens produce a whole lot of different vegetables, but selling them brings very little money. We should produce them into something more expensive. I opened the catalog and found this preserved food factory That takes in most of the garden production and turns it into preserved food. It cost $330,000. I hopped into the big truck. First, sold off all the wood for $183,626. Then all the apples and apple juice for another $211,983. I had enough money and plus some. But I had a huge dilemma.
Where should I build it? It would be smart to build it somewhere near this garden. But we planted all those apple trees around here and got no space now. We could clear these trees, I guess, and just build here. Nah, that's too much work. Could have built here, but we planted corn already. The yard is full as well. We do have this plowed field that is not planted, though. This is basically our only option.
I spent $330,000 on the factory, about $5,000 on all the asphalt, and another $25,000 on a concrete fence. Ran to the factory, activated all the production lines. It should increase our profits on the vegetables substantially. Now only need to transport them all. Loaded all the vegetables on the trailer, transported them to the factory. But for some reason, some of them got sold, and some were left on the trailer. I unloaded it at the side for now, and went off to pick up the rest. Loaded up the second trailer. Managed to fit everything. Some of it got sold again. But this time we got way more stuff left. Some of the materials, like chili peppers, garlic, and spring onions, are just full. And products like peas, spinach, and green beans just got sold for some reason. And I have no idea why. I took everything that was left to the store and sold for $153,978. Parked the trailer and got to thinking, I wonder how the sheep are doing. I ran to the sheep barn.
Okay, they still got food. That's good. Oh, what a cutie. A full field of them. But they seem to struggle with outgrown sheep to show them the way of sheeping. 82 sheep cost $44,000. Are 8-month sheep even considered fully grown? Let's see. Sheep produce wool, which can be sold directly or processed further. Okay, got that. Sheep eat grass and hay. Additionally, they require water. Animals that are healthy and older than 8 months can reproduce. Okay, so they are grown. Let's just buy a full barn then. They are just chilling.
I ran back to the farm, sat down on my lovely chair, and decided to go on holiday for a couple of months. Hopped into the Land Cruiser and went off to somewhere nice. When I came back, we had a huge backlog of jobs that had to be done immediately. I decided to start off by selling all the products, hopped into the big truck, and began selling everything off. First, sold off all the preserved food from our new factory for $106,997. Then sold the first load of apples for $173,007, and the second for $147,623. Wood sold for another $332,848. First load of vegetables sold for about $100,000. Second for $127,284. Third for about $90,000. And last for another $100,000. All in all, we got $1.3 million. We can finally call ourselves millionaires. But on my way back, I got emotional.
Man, in 5 years, we got so far. Starting from that deceased farm at the very beginning, to this massive conglomerate that produces all kinds of products for the local market. But I think it's time to hand it down to the new generation.
I hopped into the Land Cruiser and went off to the sunset. If you watched till now, leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment of what you want to see next. See you in the next one.